For 10 years, I gave my wife's family every spare dollar, thinking I was saving them from poverty, until I accidentally saw a bank notification on my father-in-law's phone. $127,000 in the account, from people who were supposedly barely making ends meet. I started digging deeper, and what I discovered changed my whole life. My name is Matt. I'm 38 years old. I work as a software engineer at a tech company in Seattle, Washington. I earn well, about $160,000 a year, plus bonuses. I'm not a millionaire, but I live comfortably. My wife, Ashley, is 36. We've been married for 12 years, and together for 14. We met at a party with mutual friends in 2010. She was working as a receptionist at a dental clinic at the time, earning about $35,000 a year. "My parents aren't rich," she said on one of our first dates. "My dad works as a mechanic, and my mom works at a grocery store. They've lived paycheck to paycheck their whole lives." That didn't bother me. I grew up in a middle-class family. My father was a teacher, my mother a nurse. We weren't rich, but we always provided for ourselves. Ashley told me that her parents, Tom and Cindy, had faced many financial difficulties: credit card debt, mortgage problems, medical bills they couldn't pay. "They're good people," she said. "They just had bad luck. Dad lost his job several times. Mom got sick, and there were huge medical expenses." It rang true. I knew that medical expenses in America could ruin the average family. I first met her parents 3 months after we started dating. They lived in a small house in the Tacoma suburbs, about an hour outside of Seattle. The house was old and in need of repair. The paint on the exterior was peeling, the porch creaked, and the furniture inside had seen better days. Tom greeted me with a firm handshake. A large man of about 60, in work clothes, with calloused hands. "Nice to meet you, son," he said. "Ashley's told me a lot about you." Cindy, a plump woman with a kind face, was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Sit down, she fussed. "Sorry for the modest fare. We're not in the best of circumstances right now." The table was sparsely stocked with food: spaghetti with tomato sauce, bagged salad, supermarket bread. Nothing fancy. Over dinner, Tom talked about his job at the auto repair shop, complaining about the low wages and high prices for everything. "We used to be able to live well on one salary," he sighed. "Now we can barely make ends meet on 2. Cindy nodded. "The electric bill last month was $300. $300. How is that possible?" They looked tired, exhausted by financial worries. I felt sorry for them. They also had 2 younger children: Ashley's brother, Jason, then 22, and her sister, Kayla, 19. Both lived with their parents, working low-paying jobs. About 6 months into their relationship, Ashley came to me in tears. "What happened?" I was horrified. "Mom was diagnosed with thyroid problems," she sobbed. "She needs surgery. Insurance only covers part of it. They have to pay the extra $4,000 out of pocket." She cried into my shoulder. "They don't know where to get the money. Dad wanted to take out a loan with huge interest rates." "No need," I said. "I'll help." "Matt, no, I can't. I want to help. Your mom needs surgery. It's about her health." I transferred $4,000 to Tom's account the next day. Ashley burst into tears of gratitude. Her parents called, thanked her, and said I'd saved them. "We'll pay you back," Tom promised, "as soon as we're a little better off." "Take your time," I replied. "The main thing is that Cindy gets better." The surgery was a success. Cindy spent a few weeks recovering. It was the first time I'd given them money. Ashley and I got married after 2 years of dating. The wedding was modest. I paid for most of it, around $20,000. Ashley's parents apologized for not being able to help financially. "We'd really like to," Cindy said tearfully, "but we just don't have that kind of money." "It's okay," I reassured her. "The main thing is that you're here with us." My parents contributed $5,000. I paid the rest from my savings. After the wedding, we rented an apartment in Seattle. a 2-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood for $2,000 a month. Ashley continued working as an administrator. I was a programmer. Together, we earned about $200,000 a year. It was enough to live comfortably. About 3 months after the wedding, Ashley came back with a problem. "Dad's car broke down," she said, upset. "He needs a new transmission, $3,000. He can't get to work without a car." Without a second thought, I transferred the money. 2 months later, a new problem. Their roof leaked and needed urgent repairs, $2,000. A month later, Jason needed money for technical college, $5,000. Then Kayla needed money for the dentist, $1,500. Then an electric bill they couldn't pay, $600. Then an unexpected bill for Tom's medical exam, $2,000. Each time, Ashley approached me with a guilty expression. "I'm so embarrassed to ask, but they're desperate. They promise to pay it back as soon as they can." And each time, I gave the money. Because I loved Ashley. Because her family seemed honest but unlucky to me. Because I grew up believing that family helps each other in difficult times. 3 years of marriage later, we had a daughter, Emma. I took 2 weeks of paternity leave. Ashley was on maternity leave for 6 months. Money got a little tighter, but we managed. Ashley's parents came to visit their granddaughter. They brought inexpensive gifts, secondhand clothes, toys from garage sales. "Sorry we can't buy you something better," Cindy apologized. "That's wonderful," Ashley replied. "The main thing is attention." Around this time, the bigger requests started. Tom lost his job at the auto repair shop. The owner closed the business. He couldn't find a new job for 2 months. "They can't pay the mortgage," Ashley told me in a panic. "The bank is threatening foreclosure. They need $3,000 to cover 2 months of delinquency." I paid. When Tom found a new job, I was happy for him. But a couple of months later, there was another problem. And another. And another. I started keeping records, just for myself, so I could understand how much I was giving. By the end of the first year after Emma's birth, I'd calculated that I'd given Ashley's family about $30,000. It was a significant sum. But I told myself it was temporary, that they were going through a difficult time. 4 years after Emma, our son Noah was born. By then, we'd moved into our own home, a small 3-bedroom house for $450,000. We took out a 30-year mortgage. My income had increased. I'd moved up a notch, earning $160,000 a year. After Noah's birth, Ashley decided to remain a stay-at-home mom for a few years. "I want to be with the kids while they're little," she said. I agreed. We could afford to live on one salary, albeit skimping on a few things. But the support for Ashley's family continued, even increased. Now it wasn't just emergencies. It became a regular occurrence. Every month, from $500 to $2,000. Sometimes utility bills, sometimes groceries. It was medication. It was car repairs. It was an urgent doctor's appointment. I wired them over $50,000 over 3 years, but I still didn't see a problem with it. The longer it went on, the more oddities I noticed. For example, their financial crises always happened at the most unexpected times. When I got a bonus at work, a week later they'd have another emergency. When we sold an old car and got cash for it, a few days later Tom urgently needed money for house repairs. When I told Ashley we were starting to save for the kids' education, suddenly Jason had car trouble, or Kayla had medical expenses. I tried to rationalize it. Just a coincidence. They really are on a losing streak. But deep down, doubts began to creep in. When Noah turned 2, I decided it was time to start saving more seriously for the kids' future. Ashley and I discussed opening education savings accounts. If we save $1,000 a month from now, by the time they turn 18, they'll each have over $200,000 for education, I explained, showing them the calculations. Ashley nodded. "That's great. Let's do that." A week later, she came with another request. "Dad needs $5,000 for urgent car repairs. He can't work without a car." Normally, I would have agreed right away, But this time, I paused. Ash, we just decided to start saving for the kids. If I give your dad $5,000 now, it will ruin our plans. She looked at me in surprise. But he really needs the money. It's urgent. I understand. But we've already given your family over $100,000 over the years. We need to think about our future, too. Her face turned cold. So, money is more important to you than my family? That's not the point. My father worked himself to the bone his entire life. He deserves help. And you're turning him down because of some savings account? We had a fight. The first serious conflict in our marriage. In the end, I gave the money anyway. Because I didn't want to continue the argument. Because I felt guilty. We never opened the education accounts that month. We regularly visited Ashley's parents for family dinners, about once every 2 weeks. The more years passed, the more I noticed a certain pattern in these visits. At first, everything was pleasant. Cindy cooked dinner, again, modest, simple. We sat at the table talking about life, about the children. Then, usually toward the end of the evening, the casual mentions of problems would begin. Tom would sigh. Yeah, there's not much work these days. The boss has cut back on the hours. I'm afraid it'll barely cover the bills this month. Or Cindy would complain. Grocery prices have gone crazy. I spent $40 at the store yesterday for the bare necessities. I used to be able to fill a whole cart with that kind of money. Or Jason would say, they offered me a refresher course. I could earn twice as much after that, but it costs $3,000, and I don't have that kind of money. It always sounded like just a conversation, not a direct request. But Ashley always reacted predictably. On the way home, she'd say, did you hear what Dad said about work? They're really having a hard time right now. Or, I feel sorry for Jason. This is his chance to build a career. And a day or two later, she'd approach me with a formal request for help. I began to feel like I was being carefully, methodically prepared for each request. Another thing I started to notice was the constant comparisons. Cindy would say, you live in such a beautiful house. The mortgage must be big? About $2,500 a month, I'd reply. She'd sigh, oh my God, we only pay $800 for our little house, and we barely even make it. Or Tom would look at my car, a Honda Accord, nothing special. It's a nice car, new. It's 2 years old. I've been driving the same car for 15 years. It's falling apart, but I can't save up for a new one. Kayla once said, looking at Ashley, what a beautiful dress you have. Where did you buy it? At Nordstrom, Ashley replied. I can never afford to buy there. It's good when a husband earns a lot. Each such remark was a little jab, a reminder of what we have and they don't, a reminder that we must help. Ashley's brother, Jason, was a different story. He was 32 years old and still living with his parents. He worked in an Amazon warehouse, earning about $40,000 a year, not bad for someone without a college degree. But he was constantly having financial problems. His car would break down. He'd urgently need money for health insurance. He'd want to take a course but couldn't afford it. Ashley always stood up for her brother. He's trying to get back on his feet. He's just having a hard time. I gave him money 5 or 6 times, $2,000 or $3,000 each time. He always thanked me and promised to pay me back. He never gave a cent back. At one point, I asked Ashley, why does Jason still live with his parents? He's a grown man. He has a job. He helps his parents with expenses, she replied. If it weren't for him, it would be even harder for them. It sounded logical, but something inside me doubted me. Ashley's sister, Kayla, worked as a waitress at a restaurant. She earned about $30,000 a year with tips. She also lived with her parents. Renting an apartment on one salary is impossible these days, she explained. Kayla also had regular problems, mostly medical ones. One day, the dentist. One day, an examination. One day, medication. I paid for her dental procedures, totaling $7,000. Then a gynecological examination, $2,000. Then came physical therapy, $1,500. Ashley said, "She can't afford good health insurance. Without your help, she simply wouldn't have gotten treatment." I wanted to be a good person, to help. But I was starting to get tired. My parents knew I was helping Ashley's family financially. Mom gently hinted several times, "Matt, honey, are you sure this is right? You're starting your own family too. You need to think about your children's future." "I think so, Mom. We're fine. I just think her family asks for help too often. Are they really that bad? They're really struggling. They're honest people. They're just unlucky." Dad was more direct. "Son, you've given them over $150,000 over 10 years. That's a lot of money. You could have bought a second property for investment with that money." "This is Ashley's family, Dad. I can't abandon them." "But where do we draw the line? When will you finally say, 'Enough'?" I didn't know the answer to that question. Over time, I began to notice that many of our plans were constantly being postponed because of helping Ashley's family. We wanted to go to Europe for our wedding anniversary. But that month, Tom had a medical emergency. I gave up the money, and the vacation was postponed. We wanted to renovate the house, update the kitchen, but Jason urgently needed money for a car. The renovation was postponed. We wanted to open education accounts for the children, but urgent needs kept cropping up for Ashley's family. The accounts never opened. I was starting to feel resentful, not at Ashley's family, but at the situation. Why should my children wait while I help other adults solve their problems? Why can't we live our own lives without constantly looking over our shoulders at their financial crises? Everything changed on Thanksgiving 2023. As usual, we went to Ashley's parents for a celebratory dinner. The house was full: Tom, Cindy, Jason, Kayla, and a few distant relatives. Cindy was cooking turkey and all the traditional dishes. The table was groaning with food. During dinner, Tom made a toast. "I'm grateful for my family, for being together, healthy, for having a roof over our heads and food on the table." Everyone raised their glasses. After dinner, the men, as is tradition, went into the living room to watch football. I was sitting on the couch, Tom in the chair, Jason on the floor. At some point, Tom got a phone call. "Just a minute," he said, and walked out into the hallway. But he left the phone on the armrest of the chair. I wasn't going to look, honestly. But the screen lit up with a new notification, and I glanced automatically. What I saw froze me in my tracks. A notification from Chase Bank appeared on the screen. "Your current balance, $127,450. I blinked. Reread it. $127,450. In a checking account. With a man who supposedly barely makes ends meet. With a man I gave over $150,000 over 10 years because he was hard up." My heart started pounding. This had to be a mistake, or some other account. Maybe it's the family's joint account? Tom returned to the room. "Sorry, work call." He picked up the phone, but the screen had already gone blank. I sat there trying to process what I'd seen. $127,000 in a checking account. That night when I got home, I couldn't sleep. I lay there and replayed everything I'd seen in my head. Maybe it was an inheritance. Maybe they'd recently received some money. But even if that's true, why do they keep asking me for help? Why didn't they say their situation had improved? The next day, I decided to dig deeper. I went to the tax office website for the county where they live. You can view public property records there. I entered their address. Their house was valued at $320,000. The mortgage was paid in full. In full. They owned the house debt-free. But Ashley always said they were having trouble with the mortgage, that they were having trouble paying. I checked the history. The mortgage had been paid off 3 years ago, right after I gave them $15,000 for an emergency mortgage problem, otherwise the bank would take the house. I started to feel sick. Next, I decided to check the cars. I went to the State Department of Motor Vehicles website. There's public information there, too. Tom had a 2021 Ford F-150 registered. A new truck cost about $45,000. But he drove an old wreck, didn't he? He always complained about his old car? I checked further. Cindy had a 2020 Honda CR-V, about $30,000. Jason had a 2019 Toyota Camry. Kayla had a 2020 Nissan Rogue. All the cars were relatively new. They cost between $25,000 and $45,000. In total, over $130,000 in vehicles, for a family that was supposedly barely surviving. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. The next evening, after the kids went to bed, I sat down across from Ashley on the couch. "We need to talk." She looked at me with surprise. "About what?" "About your family. About the money I give them." Her face tightened. "What happened?" "I accidentally saw a bank notification on your father's phone. He has over $127,000 in his account." Silence. "Ash, I gave your family over $150,000 over 10 years because you said they were struggling. Why does your dad have over $100,000 in his account?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of mistake?" "It's not a mistake. I checked. Their house is fully paid for. They all drive new cars. Jason posts pictures from Las Vegas, Kayla from Mexico. They don't look like a poor family." Ashley paled. "You just don't understand. They were in debt. They were struggling." "When? When were they struggling?" 3 years ago, I gave them $15,000 for the mortgage. The mortgage was paid off right after that. They used my money to pay off the mortgage." "And what's wrong with that?" "The bad thing is, they lied. They said the bank was threatening to foreclose on the house, that they needed the money urgently, otherwise they'd be left homeless." Ashley covered her face with her hands. "You lied to me," I said more quietly. "You and your family. For years." "We didn't lie. You lied." I stood up. "Every time you said they needed urgent help, every time I canceled our plans to help your family, you manipulated me," Ashley cried. For a long time, I stood and waited. Finally, she raised her head. "Okay, yes, they weren't as poor as I said." Her words stung, even though I already knew the truth. "But it was really hard for them," she added quickly. "In the beginning, when we first met, they had debts, problems, and then it got easier, but what? But we got used to your help. It helped them get back on their feet, pay off their debts, save up money." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious? You used me like an ATM?" "No, not like an ATM. You helped my family. Thanks to you, they're doing well now." "Are they doing well? And US?" "Ash, we still haven't saved up for the kids' education. We can't afford a proper vacation. And your brother goes to Las Vegas on my money? That's not..." "When were you going to tell me? When were you planning on admitting they no longer need your help?" Silence. "Never?" I almost screamed. "Would you have continued this for years?" "I don't know." She screamed too. "I don't know, okay? It just happened." And it became hard to stop. I demanded a family meeting. I called Tom and said, "I need to talk to everyone. You, Cindy, Jason, Kayla, tomorrow evening." "About what?" His voice was worried. "Come and find out." The next day, we went to their place without the kids, leaving them with my parents. The whole family was there. Everyone looked tense. I sat down across from them all. "I happened to see the bank statement on your phone, Tom," I began without preamble. $127,000 in the account." Tom turned pale. Silence. "Over 10 years, I gave you over $150,000 because you said you were struggling. How can I explain to you how people who can barely make ends meet come up with that kind of money? Tom opened his mouth, but found no words. Cindy burst into tears. Matt, we didn't mean to deceive you, but we did. For years. Tom sighed heavily. It was really hard for us in the beginning. When you and Ashley first started dating, we had credit card debt, over $30,000. The mortgage was a huge burden. Okay, I nodded. And did my help you? Yes, a lot. We were able to pay off the credit cards. We started saving. And when you paid off the debt, why didn't you tell me? Pause. Because... Cindy looked at Ashley. Because it was convenient. The words hung in the air. Convenient, I repeated. Matt, you have to understand, Tom began. We've worked our whole lives, hard, and we never had the opportunity to just live comfortably. And then when you showed up with a good salary, willing to help, we thought, why not? Why not? You could afford it, Jason interjected. You make over $150,000 a year. For you, a couple thousand here and there is nothing. I looked at him incredulously. That doesn't give you the right to lie to me. We didn't lie, Kayla began. We just didn't specify the details. Didn't specify? You staged financial crises. Tom raised his hand. Okay, yes. Sometimes we exaggerated the situation, but we needed the money. For what? For your son to go to Las Vegas? Jason deserves a vacation. For my money? I demanded details, and they reluctantly began to tell me. It turned out that many of the emergency crises were completely made up or greatly exaggerated. For example, 3 years ago, Tom said the bank was threatening to foreclose on their house if they didn't pay the $15,000 in overdue mortgage. The truth, they were 1 month overdue, $800. They could have easily covered that. But they decided to ask me for more and use the money to pay off the mortgage entirely, or when Jason supposedly urgently needed $3,000 for car repairs, otherwise he wouldn't be able to get to work. The truth, the car needed $400 brake pads. He spent the rest on a new computer. Or when Kayla needed $2,000 for an urgent medical exam. The truth, the exam cost $500 and was covered by her insurance. She spent the rest on shopping. Story after story, lie after lie. I turned to Ashley. You knew all this? She couldn't look me in the eye. Not all? When did you find out? 2 or 3 years ago. Mom accidentally let it slip. For 3 years, she knew her family was deceiving me and she kept quiet. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't know how. They're my family. I didn't want you to be mad at them. So you kept asking me to give them money? I thought, if I stopped, you'd ask why, and then everything would become clear. And that's what happened, Ashley cried harder. Matt, I'm sorry. I know it's terrible, but they're my family. I couldn't betray them. But you could betray me? Your husband? The father of your children? And you too? I turned to Jason and Kayla. You live with your parents, don't pay rent. You make $30,000 to $40,000 a year. Where does your money go? Jason crossed his arms over his chest. It's my money. I spend it however I want. You live on my money. I paid for your cars, your medical bills, everything. And what did you do with your paychecks? Kayla snapped back. We work. We have the right to rest. With my money? Tom intervened. Enough. Matt, we understand you're angry. I couldn't stand being there anymore. I stood up and said, I won't give you another cent, ever. Ashley ran after me. Matt, wait, let's talk. What are we talking about? You and your family lied to me for 10 years, used me. I know, I'm so sorry. But we can fix this. How? I turned to her. How are you going to fix this, Ash? You can't give me 10 years back. You can't give me $150,000 back. They can give me the money back. I don't need their money. I needed honesty, trust. but you chose to protect them over me. I got in the car and drove away. I left Ashley with her family. I needed time to think. Conversation with parents. I went to my parents. I told them everything. Mom was crying. Matt, honey, I'm so sorry. I felt something was wrong, but I didn't want to interfere. Dad was more direct. File for divorce. She betrayed you. Dad, we have 2 children. That's exactly why you have to file. Do you want your children to grow up thinking this kind of behavior is normal? That manipulation and lying are normal? He was right, but it was so hard. Ashley called me dozens of times a day. I didn't answer. She texted, Matt, please, let's talk. I know I'm terrible, but we can get through this. The kids are asking where you are. My parents want the money back, all the money. That last message made me stop. I called her. What do you mean, give the money back? Dad said he'll wire you $150,000, everything you've given me over the years. Really? Yes. He feels terrible. They all do. Matt, it was wrong, I know. But let's try to start over, from a clean slate. I hesitated. Tom asked to meet with me one-on-one. We met at a coffee shop. He looked aged, tired. Matt, I want to apologize, he began. What we did was wrong, very wrong. Why did you do it? I asked. You had enough money. Why lie? He sighed. Greed, I guess. We saw an opportunity to live better and took it. I'm not proud of it. You've broken my trust. In you. In Ashley. I know. And I want to fix it. I'll transfer you $150,000. The whole amount. It's not about the money. I know. But that's all I can do. We sat in silence. Ashley loves you, Tom said. She made a mistake supporting us, but she loves you and the children. Don't destroy the family because of us. I thought a lot over the next week. On the one hand, Ashley lied to me for 3 years, supported her family's lies. On the other hand, we have 2 children, 12 years of marriage, and she seems genuinely remorseful. Tom transferred $150,000 to my account. I opened education savings accounts for both children and put $50,000 each. The remaining $50,000 went into our pension. Then I called Ashley. We need to talk. Seriously. We met at home. The kids were with my parents. I'm willing to try to save the marriage, I said. But on conditions. Ashley nodded, tears streaming down her face. Anything. Any conditions. First, we're going to see a family therapist. Immediately. Yes. Second, you never, ever ask me to give your family money again, for any reason. I promise. Third, if your family comes to you with financial problems, you tell them to come to us both, and we solve it together. No secrets. Okay. It's been 3 months since the truth was revealed. Ashley and I see a therapist twice a week. It's helping. Slowly, but it's helping. I'm still angry. I still feel hurt. Sometimes I wake up at night and think about how I was used. But I also see that Ashley is really trying. She's become more open. She shows me all her messages with her family. She doesn't hide anything. I've seen her family once since the confrontation, at our daughter's birthday party. It was awkward, tensed, but we were polite for the children's sake. Tom and Cindy apologized again. I accepted their apology but said we needed time. Jason and Kayla kept their distance. They didn't apologize. I don't expect that from them. The money Tom returned is now working for my children's future. That's some consolation. My question for you. For 10 years, he was an ATM for his wife's family, thinking he was helping people in need. It turned out they were simply using him to live more comfortably and save their paychecks. His wife knew about it for the past 3 years and kept quiet. They returned the money. They apologized. Now a question for you, viewers. Did he do the right thing by trying to save a relationship with a man who betrayed his trust? Or is he just a coward, afraid of divorce and loneliness. Will he ever be able to trust Ashley again? And how should he feel about her family now,